So what the Invoice tab does is it takes the ticket information entered by drivers or on the initial detail level, mileages and things like that, and purchasers, and it will automatically calculate out the invoice and the settlement calculation, so your accounts receivable and payable on a ticket by ticket basis. So up here at the top, you do have some of that basic information that is relevant to how the invoice got calculated the way it did. So typically that would be the purchaser, their region. We're going to skip these for a sec. The driver, carrier, cargo type, primary measurements, things like that kind of show up here. This next section right here actually is pretty cool. It's the invoice, rate sheet, settlement, and the application rules section. So what these do is they don't show like text here, but you can click on the green magnifying glass, and if applicable, in this case, there probably hasn't been a settlement created for this, but if I click on the green magnifying glass, it'll actually open up the invoice information or other information here. So you can see this ticket is a part of this invoice 21.1.2.bec or whatever. You can see the invoice total, the dates, all this information in here, and you could actually open up the full invoice in here and kind of go through and look at it as well. So pretty cool to be able to jump directly from a ticket to see which invoice it got included on. Same thing goes for a rate sheet. If you want to see how the rates or how the information was calculated, you can open up, and this will open up a new window where you can see the rate sheet that was applied to this specific ticket. So you can see, for example, we've got all of these being charged except for there's no fuel surcharge on this. You could look up any of the different charges in here, the mileage table, things like that. So pretty useful as well. And then the last one right here is kind of useful for troubleshooting. It may look a little intimidating, but if we click on the accounting application rules one here, you can see why it chose which application rules it wanted to. So you have all of this information that may be used in deciding how the rates need to be applied, which we cover in the accounting management videos, how to set up these rate sheets and the application rules and things like that. But you can see the all the purchaser, pickup, drop-off locations, other potential things that may be used in determining how to do the invoice. And then the Invoice tab will show you how it selected which rate sheet to use. So in this case, it didn't have an exact match for like a route or specific pickup location. We had one rate sheet down here, our standard rates, that applied for that purchaser subregion. And so that's how it decided to use this rate sheet. On the settlement side, you can see that the settlement calculations do not use a rate sheet. Instead, they're just doing like a simple 85%. So it doesn't have that whole kind of cascading priority of how we determined how to do the figure out which rates to charge for the specific ticket. Instead, it's just take 85% of the values from the invoice side and just multiply by that. So pretty useful. And then after we kind of looked at this top section of the invoices, if we scroll down a bit, you can actually see all of the different line items right here. So we can see our chain up, fuel surcharge, which doesn't have anything. It doesn't look like that a chain up event. Our mask up, rate per bill for the line haul, etc. for both the invoice and the settlement side. And then if you scroll down here, you have the ability to see the totals. So the invoice total, if there's any tax tied to it, if you've got that set up, settlement totals and things like that. Down here at the bottom also is the ability to check the box for billing a purchaser or paying a driver. So let's say you have a kind of mix up here where a ticket was, and this might happen more with like reject loads, but you have a ticket where you want to pay the driver but you don't want to bill the purchaser for whatever reason. You could uncheck the bill purchaser box, and then obviously the total is going to go to $0. You're not billing them out at all. You can see all of this right here. And the crossed out part shows what it would have been if you were billing them. We're not going to do that. The pay driver is the exact same, but on the driver's side, you can see right here. So if you wanted to bill but not pay out the driver for whatever reason, there was a bad termination or something or breach of contract, you could do that as well, and they wouldn't show up in the settlement. So the other thing to note in here is all of these do have edits. So the little blue checkbox thing. If we wanted to come in here and just manually override one of these, let's say, actually it is a chain up. And typically in this case, what you would want to do, if there was something wrong, you'd want to correct the underlying issue on the ticket so that the data is all looking good. So in this case, if there actually was a chain up event, we should go over into measurements and say, hey, there actually was a chain up event. So I'm going to say, yes, there was a chain up event, click enter. And then if I come back over here into invoice, there's a little refresh icon up here at the top. I'm going to click on that, and now our chain up fee is getting put out to $40. So usually you want to go back and fix the underlying reason there, but we also do have the ability to go in and edit it and just manually change it. So I'm just going to go and zero this back out and click enter. I need to give a reason that says, not paying out or something, or we're not charging for chain up. Not charging out chain up. Yeah. Spelling. Hard on a Monday morning. So we'll go ahead and do that. And you'll see that it was originally 40, but it's not we're not charging it out, so it's actually 0. So the total down here will be, reflected of this 250. And if I wanted to put it back, I could just, edit and put in the 40. So you can change any of these on the invoice side or the settlement side, and, it'll kind of log out this change right here. And when we get to the logs, you'll see a lot of these events are getting logged in there too, so there's full accountability. But the last thing here on the ticket invoice tab here is the yellow magnifying glass, which all that this does, and this is kind of a technical thing, you may never use this, but it lets you see exactly the logic used in calculating out the specific line items right here. And in the case of the settlement, we don't have those because this is just 85% of whatever's up here, but if these were using a custom rate sheet, you would also get the yellow magnifying glass. But if I come into here and click on the yellow magnifying glass, it's going to show me the logic trace, which the logic trace in this case, we take the number of times or the count of chain up. So there's one chain up, multiply by 40, and then we take whatever we calculated right here, which is 40, and divide by the number of split tickets, which in this case, there are no split tickets. So there's just the one ticket. And so the dollar value before I changed it was 40. And you can come into here and override the cost. So if we wanted to change that, say, actually, this should be, 35 instead. In the future, you'll notice right here now, it should have actually originally been 35 before, since we kind of overrode it. So you have the ability to kind of like do some rate sheet manipulation stuff in here. Things that you probably never need to do, but once in a blue moon, it does come up where there needs to be some hardcore, kind of accounting special situations on tickets where, someone's made a phone call and there's like just some case where numbers need to change. So within the ticket window in here, you have the full ability to manipulate directly or change the measurements in order to get the calculations to come out, or even change some of the underlying information in there in order to get the numbers out. And then each one of these you can see is going to have like different overrides. This has got the wait time cost is default 100. You could override that. And then you can see the logic trace is a little more complicated for this one, where if it's a reject, you don't bill. Otherwise, if the wait time is less than an hour, then you just don't charge. Otherwise, you take these, further steps in order to calculate it. But yeah, so quite a bit in this section. Their invoices are quite complicated at the get-go, but once you get familiar with them, it's super flexible and very easy to go in and make sure that you can get the right numbers in the right places so that your customers and that your drivers are billed and paid out quickly and easily, and that you can kind of have the flexibility to do, on the fly changes, which come up once in a while. But yeah, we're going to be moving on to the next section now.